Let me unmute first. I thought I did that. So welcome to the Artist Exchange Radio Show. I'm your host, Nate. We have another edition of the show today. We're talking about just finding that balance. Um, as I've been saying the last couple months, I've had to really put myself in a new space and really re-establish myself in this new year. Not that it was a lot going absolutely horribly wrong, but there were a lot of pieces of me that I needed to adjust and pivot. Going through a pandemic, losing so many people, it's really been difficult. And then to still be in a space where people still aren't practicing safe distancing, and they really don't feel like the pandemic is kind of over for them. And people are still dying. Numbers are still fluctuating every day. And we have a lot of leaders that are really totally disregarding the safety of all of us and putting politics ahead of anything else. So I'm really in a space right now where I'm just readjusting myself mentally. And it cost me a lot, but it definitely has been worth whatever cost it is, because your mental stability is really important, because it can open you up to physical ailments if not treated and not, taken advantage of. But we have a different, we have a guest today that has a totally different perspective from a totally different country. And he'll be talking to us about what the atmosphere is like where he is. Yeah, so without further ado, let me invite my friend, Mr. I call him Joffrey, but his name is not Joffrey. I'll let him introduce himself. Hello, sir.
Hey there. Hey, Nate.
How are you? Can you tell people a little bit about yourself and where you're calling from, where you're coming from, or broadcasting from, rather?
So my name is Cedric Jeffrey Basunga. I was born and raised in Switzerland, where I'm also located at right now.
Mm-hmm.
Originally from Congo and Cameroon. And yeah, that's basically about me.
So we talk a lot, myself and Jeffrey, we talk a lot about just emotions and where we are. We have a lot of conversations around feelings, and I don't really have that relationship. This is kind of a new thing for me to have those type of conversations with people in general, but specifically other Black men. And Jeffrey is on, because he's not Black American, he's coming from a different, more international diaspora of Black African, uh, culturally different. So some things are we have to explain to each other in terms of differences, and not just the way we talk or our lingo, but just cultural differences amongst us. And talking to Jeffrey, someone in another country who don't look at African Americans as, you know, beastly creatures or thugs and such based off of what they see on TV or movies or in the news. So it's been refreshing talking to someone who has had a different experience growing up than I did, but we basically come from the same type of place. And it really is refreshing to talk to someone who looks like you, who has a different or broader aspect of the diaspora, that being of Black Africans and so on and so forth. But I wanted to specifically talk about today, just finding that balance emotionally, therapeutically, the self-care of it all as we matriculate through life, as we matriculate through this pandemic, and just as Black men, how difficult it can be, because we don't really have those conversations. If you want another insight on this, if you missed Monday's show, that you thought I was him podcast, we talked a little bit about this. And that series is really dedicated to having these types of conversations specifically for that project. But with you here with me today, how are you feeling? Let's start there.
Well, in general, I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling
Mm,
okay. Just tired with, studies, work, and making sure that everything like is done on the right date,
hmm.
and also like putting yourself in, like how I like to say, your dedication into your education, because
Okay.
you gotta have a certain type of a level. So, but besides that, I'm doing okay. Just tired, but okay. How about
So,
yourself?
and I appreciate it because it's like almost midnight where Joffrey is, and I appreciate you staying up on a Friday night to spend some time talking. Um, I'm gonna get the pandemic stuff out of the way. What we don't realize in the United States, outside of the United States, they are typically ahead of us in how they're handling the pandemic. Not that it's been any better or worse, but they're handling it different. And they have been on the cusp of it. Whereas we're kind of waiting and seeing, and then we jump on whatever the trend is in that moment. How has the pandemic been for you now, almost 2 years into it?
Me in the beginning, like it was some kind of like surreal, like these drastic changes from I think 2020, right around March,
Mhm.
everything changed like that. So it was so surreal and so strange. And then the government is telling you that you can't even like touch or hug like your own people that you love. So it was kind of strange at first, but then I mean, common sense, you saw what was going on, and something was out there. Unfortunately, you
Yeah.
can pointed out what it was, but something was out there. So for me, it was just like, you know what, just stick with, I mean, just go with the flow. Just go with the flow, and maybe someday it will be better.
And you all kind of were able to open up before we were, because you closed, you all shut down before we did as well. We didn't really shut down until like the end of March, but we were starting the lockdown process like mid-March, but it didn't really go into effect until maybe like the end of March, and for some people, April. But how was it? How has it been? You all will open back up, and then you have mandates, and then they kind of release. How has it been going through this like roller coaster of mandates and safety precautions?
Well, for me personally, I didn't really like it because at first it was like, okay, nobody's going outside anymore. Now it's completely curfew. Everybody was at home, okay? And then it's like, okay, now we can try. People can go outside again. But now, if y'all meet, it's only 5 people of y'all and not more, right? And then 5 people, they stick to the plan, like the government was saying. And then it's kind of like, okay, we see the numbers are going up again. And then let's go back to the curfew. People were respecting this and people didn't. So it was just this kind of like up and down and no strict line that everybody was following. So it was a bit annoying for me personally. And I think also for the majority in that community would say the same.
Where are you
Mhm.
all at now in terms of precautions, or is it still mask mandates and
Oh no, they dropped the mask, the mask mandatoriness on the February 16th. Yeah.
okay?
And in my opinion, I think it's way too early. It's way too early. I mean, I get it
Right.
now. Like most of the people are vaccinated, right? But now, like most of the people now, we call them here like sport vacation, right? And people they traveled, so now they're
Mm-hmm.
gonna bring that stuff with them, right? And the number's gonna go
It's
up
just gonna
again.
keep going around.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Instead of just like, I mean, I get it. Like everybody's tired now, right? Everybody want to feel the freedom, but it's a little bit too early, in my opinion. Even in schools right now, like in schools, we don't have to wear masks anymore. So I
And
think
that,
it's
but you all have been there before. Like we've been there slightly. The mask has been kind of throughout the whole thing for us, depending on where you are in the United States. But you
mm,
all have been able to lift it, and then when the numbers spike, they go back to it, right?
and I
It,
guess that's how it would come out. I'm sure it would come out like that.
yeah, it's scary
Mhm.
because as I've said to you, I've taken a little break from the school system because there's nothing consistent that we're doing that makes me feel comfortable. You have to feel comfortable, and you work within the school system as well. Has it been a big change? Because your numbers haven't really been as bad as other places have been there, right?
No, they were for sure lower than our neighbor countries like Germany or Austria or France, right? But they were still high for a small little country of Switzerland with 8 million people, counted on the number of people, right? It was still high. It was
Yeah,
still high. Yeah.
yeah. Speaking of Germany, in our international news here, we're getting a lot of the Ukraine and fighting and invading. Is that in y'all news there, or is it not as big as they're making it to be here?
It is for sure. It's for sure big news. Yeah, that made it around the world. Ukraine and Russia. Yeah, like Putin, he promised war now.
How how comfortable are you? Because you, like you said, that's a neighboring country.
Well, let's over here. Um, have you heard? Um, do you remember? Did you watch Luke Cage
Mm-hmm.
show? And do you remember in the barbershop, like the gang, like I think two people started to argue with each other, and then the barbershop owner, he was like, not in this place. This is Switzerland. You remember that? So
Right.
this is basically like Switzerland. Like Switzerland is so financially so well covered around like all these news or negative influences that it doesn't even bother people here, not economically, not personally, right? So we don't really have nothing to do with them unless like, maybe like just transactions, maybe business wise, but like what they got going on right now, it doesn't really like affect us at all.
So even the talk of a possible war with the rest of the world, it doesn't. I know it bothers you, just the news in general, but is that a consensus amongst people in Switzerland? It being a neutral space to live, is still not a concern if a war breaks out?
It could be, but the thing is, all these major countries, right?
Mm-hmm.
They they save their money out in Switzerland because they get a lot of the most interest, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
the reason why they ain't gonna touch Switzerland at all.
Mm. Wow,
So,
I need to come, not with everybody, money being in there. Yeah, well,
you
I mean, that's why I guess people you don't really hear anything bad coming from Switzerland. Not that it's a perfect place, but a lot of people got their offshore accounts and private business accounts there. So that's a major place to protect, if anything. Um, in terms of just so I'm gonna jump right into the balancing
but wait,
aspect.
before we
Go
go
ahead.
to this topic, right? I saw a girl on YouTube, and she was about to explain like how the situation is for the states. Unfortunately, I didn't watch that video but I saved it on my list. How does it affect like the states?
For us, it's always what is it in the Ukraine that, or the Germany or wherever a war may break out. How does that affect us financially? That's typically how the United States determines whether or not it's going to get into it or protect the Ukraine or whatever. But us being there or fighting for the Ukraine, it's some benefit. And I believe it's more so in the area of energy. Um, and that's a big thing for us right now because we're coming out of the ice age of our energy and going into a more cleaner, more efficient energy. And right now, our country is and it's been like this for a number of years now, very politically divided. And it's more so than it's ever been before. And our current president is battling with our old president, and I don't like to say his name, but Trump has inserted himself in our political system even after being out of office, and his connection with Putin and German and Russian connections, it really is damaging because it is further dividing our country. And that's one of the major kind of points in this. It's just a political system because we have a midterm election coming up, and these things are polarizing. So all of this going on is alleged because of United States system, because we're still, whether people believe it or not, at the top of many of the big decisions that happen globally. And if you mess with our election system, which the Republicans here and many people like Putin has interfered with our election, it really determines what happens around the world as well. So it's really damaging right now because we have yet another midterm election that means a lot. If our Republicans gain control of our Senate and House, that could mean a lot of stalemates for the rest of our presidents stay as president. And that's the effect. So people are saying that this war is being purposely done between, I want to say, China and Germany and Russia. Is being done because they have connections to our Republican system here. And it all boils down to money and power. And that's unfortunately, lives will be lost because of money and power and positioning. So, yeah, unfortunately. Is that the messaging you all are getting, or is it from your perspective, from the perspective of where you are?
How about that? I just saw this girl on video on YouTube, right? And she was about to explain, I think, for America, what it means for America, and she even was talking about, like, if you own a house, what you should do now, how to save the money up and all that stuff. So it goes deeper into the material than I
Well,
think.
if we get into a war, we're going to be, excuse my language, fucked. Because of our past presidency, we are already in a space where we have horrible inflation, and everything is very expensive. And the fact that we're coming out of a pandemic where big companies and some smaller companies have raised the price on everything. So if we go into a war with the Ukraine against Germany, it's really going to be, I believe, harder here, because wars normally bring about a rise in inflation, which is the cost of living is going to go up, but people's paychecks and money is going to go down. Amount of their money and paychecks are going to go down. So we're in a space right now where I'm hoping we're not going to go into a war, and whatever this is resolved within the Ukraine and between Ukraine and Germany and Europe in general. Like, I'm at a space where let them handle their own businesses, but other countries getting into war can affect every other country in the world. So it's hard to really say that. And I wouldn't want us to be in a state of war and nobody wants to help us. But a lot of this is normally a bunch of white men sitting up, making decisions for the rest of the world without any connection to us as individual citizens of this world. And that's unfortunate, but we often have to pay the cost and the price for these white men. Sorry, white men, but you are the problem.
Yes, let's hope for the best.
How and I've asked you this several times, but how does other countries, from your perspective, what is the United States reputation with the world? If you can answer that.
That is, let me think of a good phrase that I heard, United States of the great America, the land of all possibilities. You're so super strong, y'all ruling everything, that
Mm.
The culture that y'all got, like it reached all over to the, like all over the globe to even
Right.
over here, Um, like people dressing like y'all, they acting like y'all, And black folks over here, they try to act like Baltimore, like literally, they try to act like Baltimore, you know. So yeah,
Mm.
I'm serious.
So outside of the United States, how do you see Baltimore? Like from your perspective, or what you've heard? Like how do people see people here? Not even Maryland, but there's a understanding of how people see specifically Baltimoreans. I know yours is a little different, but can you kind of touch on both sides of that?
Yeah, sure. Well, let's say like that. Baltimore actually has a beautiful history. I mean, we call it beautiful. Well, it had a economical, interesting history. Let's say like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
In industrial time, it was beautiful, and then how time evolves, um, then Baltimore had a parallel community, the one that got who live in downtown and the
Mm-hmm.
one uptown, right? Downtown, you know how it is, the ones who function right, who got everything well balanced, that these are the ones who are down there. But then when you go uptown, this is where we got where the neighborhoods maybe resemble a little bit to the wire, right? It's tough.
It's crazy that that's the image that people have of the entire city, and I understand because they were very specific as to where they went in the city, and it would
Mm,
give you the illusion that the entire city is that corrupt or that morally unstructured.
Unfortunately, right? But at the end, like I can't be mad. I can't be mad at them because it's
Mhm.
generation over generation past traumas that
Yeah.
getting passed on to the kids, and the kids what they got to do, right? They got like no perspective. So what am I do? I gonna waste like 7 years or 8 years in school, right? And while my mother like is starving and she can't pay the bills, or do I go on the street and make my 20K, right? Like easy, fast money that I can support my family. So screw the paper, like the certification paper. Let's get this money, right? So
Mhm.
I can be
And it
mad at
just, but I hear what you're saying, but Baltimore is very small compared to most of the other major cities in the world. And the fact that Baltimore over New York, over parts of Florida or Atlanta or LA, uh, we get the bulk of corruption and the negativity and just people really come here thinking that it's going to be a war zone. They really, people really, even when we start talking, and you've been to the United States before, and it's still amazing to me that I know your perspective is you've seen it, but it's still it's crazy to me that people have that perception, and some of them have never even been here, so they've only seen homicide or The Wire, and
because this is
nothing
that's the
beyond that.
only thing that got broadcasted. That's the only
Yeah,
thing that got broadcasted on TV, and it was it was so published, like and pushed. It was so pushed.
yeah.
Ain't nobody want to see like what's going on in downtown, like how the Caucasian they got nothing really going on that interests us, right? So you better want to have the grimy side, unfortunately.
I mean, but it's what is really crazy. A lot of movies are shot here, and they always depict out because we have a lot of parts of our city that mimic other parts of the United States. So we have agriculture, we have industrialism, we have urban cities. We look suburban in certain areas of the city actually. So people in our inner city downtown areas look like other downtown areas. There's certain spaces and certain buildings that mimic how they look, and it's just with all the other movies that were made here, people only and sometimes they don't know that they're in Baltimore. Sometimes those movies don't expose that they were actually shot here in Baltimore. But, yeah, it's amazing to me that people still think that this city is just The Wire or Homicide, because those two TV shows kind of left us with a bad taste in people's mouth. Unsafe taste in their mouth. Um, Moving forward a little bit, is there racism in Switzerland? We've heard a couple stories, but does racism exist in Switzerland?
It does, but hidden. It's hidden.
Hidden?
This is something about like let's say a Switzerland citizen, right? If he has an issue with you, he's not addressing it. Like y'all Americans, when y'all have a problem, y'all addressing it, y'all spit the truth in his face, right? But that's not how the Switzerland being is. Like he's more reserved and he's talking to you, but you gotta check what he means between the lines. So we got racism here, but hidden in form of, okay, I got the better education than you see, so go do the dirty work. That kind of racism, or
okay.
Just you can feel it. You can feel it. It's just different. Over here, it's more the how do we say that? The academic racism that we have here.
Institutional.
It's
a part of the system. It's not, well, it had been that way, well, not all throughout this country's history, but there was a moment I can remember in my lifetime where it wasn't always in your face. It may have been pockets depending on whether you're in the South or, but it was very institutional, meaning it was a part of the fabric of this country, the makeup of it. And I'll say since Bush Jr. was in office as president, and then we had Clinton, and then we had, we had Clinton, I believe. Did Clinton come before Bush? I'm lost. I believe because Obama replaced Bush. So it was Clinton, Bush, then Obama, then Trump. So it was like Republican, Democrat, racist throughout the whole thing. But by the time we got to Trump, it was overtly, it went back to when my grandparents and my mother was young, where, you could be assaulted. We've had several people, and a lot of those deaths that you hear about on the news, a lot of that stuff has been over the years. But recently, we just in a pandemic, George Floyd happened. Amir, I think his name Ahmad, his case is going on right now. We've had a lot of in-your-face racism. So the only thing that I've ever heard about from Switzerland was from Oprah when she went into the boutique, and they would not sell her the bag. They didn't believe she could afford it. So that means they probably didn't even know who she was at that point. But from hearing you talk, it is very apparent. Have you ever had it in your face before?
The one time that I had it in my face was in like first grade, second grade, calling me chocolate, things like that. Oh, look at that chocolate. I'm sure you could lick yourself up and all that stuff, right? Yeah, stuff like that, childish thing. And of course, like as a kid, it hits different, right? But then I understood, okay, I'm different, I'm different and I'm foreign, I'm different. But later on, only when I was looking out for a job, then I saw it, Like you could tell the way how he was just flipping to the documentaries, right? Through the pages, and he like, yeah. I'm in my mind, like, dude, just say it, man. I get it, Come on. But other than that, I mean, I feel somehow I kind of like blocked off my brain, of that, because if I would pay attention to the races, like to the racism around me,
right?
I would flip out. I can't, because I did that when I was 16 or even 14 when I watched The Roots, and then I understood, wow, okay, I am Black and I'm different in this country. And then I became a Black Nazi in my mind, you know. And I was like, you know, F all these Caucasians and all that. What am I doing here? You know, I'm not feeling well here. I'm not feeling connected. I got no connection to this country and all that stuff. But somehow right now I try to, you know, I try to take
Balance
the
it.
best out what I can
Mhm.
get from this country, right? And, you know, further evolve with it, with what I have or what
Mhm.
I got from them, or the people who are willing to give me something, you know. So I try to take the best out what I can and yeah, move on.
So
But we
balancing
do
that with your experience in coming to the United States, what was different for you, or what was the experience like seeing it for yourself versus just watching it in movies or hearing about it on the news?
experience. It was interesting, like when I came to the States for the first time, already just standing, I mean, standing at the airport, you could feel the atmosphere, like the split parallels, like
Mm-hmm.
split racism. I'm like, wow. And just when you walk into the, like, you take the elevator, you go down to the customer control, right? And you see
Mm-hmm.
this huge flag. I'm like, okay, patriotism over here is real. But um, it's real. It's real out there in the States. It is real.
But
It is
you've been to California, I believe you've been to Georgia, you've been to
mm,
Maryland. Did you go to New York?
so far not.
No. So those are the three states you've been to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And those are completely different. Georgia is the South, California is the West Coast, and Maryland is very much so East Coast. And it's a Maryland is kind of south north, like right in between, but it's three different places. So those are three different experiences and you haven't even been to like the Midwest, like Texas or like Nebraska, those places, or the higher up north, like the Maines or Massachusetts or places like that. So it's still um, parts that you haven't really seen. And each state is its own country, really. It really feels like its own country based off the type of people that live there, the laws, who's in power, and it changes from year to year depending on who's in power and who's politically in power.
Mm, mm, mm. And
Was that
like,
anything that you picked up on?
I mean, no, I didn't. I mean, I didn't know that like each country has its own kind of like rules or something like that. But my question was, how do you deal with it on a daily basis like that? Because over here it's kind of like hidden. And I gotta be honest, sometimes I forget that I'm Black because, like at my school, right? When I sit down at the lunch break room with all the teachers, right, and they talk to me like I'm one of them. And then like all of a sudden while I eat lunch and I look at my hand and I'm like, oh, I'm Black. Yeah, I'm Black. I forgot
Mm,
that. Right. But how is it for y'all in the States? Like, because
well, I'm gonna say you never forget. I don't care how comfortable you are in an environment. Um, the system, and that's part of the systematic racism that this country was built on. You don't forget. Some people try to forget and they try to ignore it for themselves. And it's people on the other side of that try to see you as I don't see color. And that is as far from the truth as anything possible because it's always in the back of your mind, is in the back of their mind, sometimes at the forefront. So I'll say it's not something that I have ever forgotten because I've mainly lived in cities. When you live out like you live out in somewhat of the suburbs of Switzerland, it would be considered the suburbs because you're not in the main city.
okay,
Um, so where you would live in comparison to here, it would be like the county or the suburbs. So often money can help you um, blend in, but you still have the remnants of who you are. And many people have realized no matter how much money you got, you'll still be a nigger to people, literally. And we see that in all across, the country. And what is weird is, I don't know if you've heard about what happened to Whoopi Goldberg recently, but our culturally, and not just racially, most of the cultures and races in this country still look at Black people as the bottom of the barrel. And it is the wildest thing ever. I remember you sent me a picture of I think it was a Confederate flag, or the police flag, Police Lives Matter flag, and it was there where you were. I remember you sent me the picture of it. I remember it was in a window, and it was that level of comparison. That's kind of a rebut to Black Lives Matter. For us to have to say that and have organizations built on promoting that, it says a lot. We're in 2022 right now. Why do we have to keep saying it? So for me, on a day-to-day basis, one, you never forget. It's hard to forget here. But my level of what I've experienced as racism, for me, I've watched more of it because I'm in the arts world. So we love each other a little bit differently, but it's still a part of the fabric of what we go through. A lot of the racism that I went through was younger, where it was in my face racism was when I was younger and I went to predominantly white schools and I felt it. Literally, fist fights, felt it. And now as an adult, I'm seeing it. It's more so in how, like you said, when someone's hiring you and they want to talk around, I have a very neutral name. So when people talk to me on the phone and they're just reading my resume or they see my name, they are confused when they see me in person. And I've seen the shock look. Like they look at the paper several times to see my name, and then they look at me, and I can tell I'm not who they were expecting. So that level of disrespect, that it goes beyond racism. It's really disrespect at that point. It's very what you will read about on the news. That part of it is very true to where our country is. Unfortunately, it feels like it's getting worse before it's going to get better. We just had a breaking news announcement from Maryland. Go ahead.
Actually, you sound Black. They shouldn't be surprised, actually.
Say that again.
You sound Black. Actually, they shouldn't be surprised.
Well, I don't know what sound Black means.
It's not a joke. I mean, but you can tell, just by the tone or the voice, you can tell somebody, oh yeah, that's a brother.
Well, when you around people who aren't around Black people often, it is not something that they readily pick up on. They choose not to. And here, depending on, just like in Europe, depending on where you are, you speak differently. So if I lived in the South, my draw may predict to them that I may be Black, but here, one city, I live in Maryland, so DC is within, our capital is within Maryland. So depending on where you are in Maryland, you may sound completely different from somebody who also lives in Maryland. So within our communities, within our city, our state, our regions, there are different dialects. So people sound different. So it's really hard for you sometimes to say that, but I get what you're saying. But a lot of the white people who are overtly racism don't hang out with Black people necessarily to be able to, identify those differences. But that's kind of, it's unfortunate, but that's just the country we live in. Being Black, how has that affected who you are? Well, before you ask that question, is there a huge African, and I have to be more specific, Black African community in Switzerland?
We have a community here, but spread it around. Spread it.
Speak
It's
up,
not
I
like
can't hear you.
okay. We do have a black community here in Switzerland, but spread it. It's very
Okay.
spread it. Like
It's not
it
really
is.
a big population like in London or something like that.
No, no, no. It's like we like this family know this family, these persons know they, and they all a little bit connected with each other. Only if we make an appointment and then we all meet together. But it's not like a huge major community like compared to Baltimore, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you just got
Yeah.
the whole family on the street, or like a whole block just blacks like that. Nah, we don't have this here. Mhm.
Mm. Was that was that difficult for you growing up, not seeing a lot of people that look like you?
It was because I felt it was really a part that I was missing, you know. But unfortunately, like not growing up with black folks had different background stories of myself because my mother, she had like negative experiences with people from our country, right? So she basically isolated us to just not to deal with, excuse me if I say that, with the nigga shit that was going on. Am I
Mm.
allowed to curse in this? I don't
Yeah,
know.
you can. You can.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I don't want to give like Monty more work that he has to, right? So that's why. But yeah.
His
So
mouth is bursting
Everybody's
anyhow.
mic's getting ready to kind of get cut off if they put that T in my name one more time. Yo, one more time.
yo, he presented you this way. What am I supposed to do? Okay. Okay, money.
But
My
yeah,
bad.
I guess I get what you're saying. It just and out in all of our conversations, it's just amazing to me that despite things not being completely different, you still were able to grow up in a space where you could forget that you were black
Yeah, it is.
and
But
it not be, but because you were aware of the lack of diversity, it still had a effect on you.
let me tell you, did you see uh like the Colin Kaepernick, he had a show. I mean, he has a show now on Netflix called Black and White, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And you remember when he went when he went into his first Thanksgiving, but with black people, right? He went in
Mm-hmm.
there and he was so surprised. Oh my gosh, like everything is so black. Wow, we got like um what is it called? Like collard green, like
Yeah.
turkey. Why we what is it called again? What's that? Not pumpkin pie, but
Oh, sweet potato pie.
yeah, sweet potato pie. And he was like, oh my gosh, this pumpkin pie. They're like, hell no. So it's the same thing for me, because I was always like, I grew up with Caucasian people. What is cool, you know? But then when I go, let's say to France, right? I come to America, like my eyebrows, they're like McDonald's. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, wow, I got so much black around me because I'm not used to that, you know?
Yeah, it is definitely a difference. And me being able to go to Europe sometimes is still because you may see it as a lot, but I still see, where the black people at. I've traveled a little bit and been able to see other countries, and that's definitely what I feel. When I go there, and it's I guess I'm used to. For me, I, I guess I'm used to seeing black people. It's not, where the black people, because if the black people disappear from Baltimore, I'm leaving. I am done. I'm not, I don't want to live in that world. But it's possible because pockets of Baltimore are very much so like that. I remember the first time I ever moved outside of Maryland. When I was young, I went to Chicago, and that's what it felt like in Chicago. Well, not outside of Chicago. That's what it felt like. We were really void of black people, and I was like, where are we? I just want to let me go into a McDonald's or something. Let me see. It was no black people in the McDonald's. It was no black people at the train station. Nowhere. But I understand that. As an adult, now seeing differently, does that make you want to leave Switzerland?
see it a little bit more different because I see it like job wise, career wise.
You
Where's
gotta
the
move
best
closer
place?
because you're not picking up on your mic.
Oh, okay, my bad. So now I see it a little bit different because, like, where am I better? Where am I better at with my career? Like, job wise, economic wise. Um, Sometimes I miss it. Sometimes I miss it. That's why I'm like, you know what? No, I need that black blessing. I need that blackification. And then I'm gonna travel to these places and then I'm gonna get my doses and I'm like, okay, I got it. But I also
Mm.
understand now why my parents always like kept me back a little bit from the black culture. Cause dude, come on, man. Nate, come on. Let's and Mr. Technician, come on. Let's be honest, man. We love our culture, right? But sometimes, yo, it's too much, huh? It's
Oh,
sometimes it's
you
too
meant in terms of our black culture being too much?
yeah. Sometimes it's too much, man. Uncle Ray Ray did that, Shaniqua did this, and blase
But
blase kid.
culturally, but see, the way I look at it, because there was a big chunk of my childhood where it was all about other people's culture. I respect my culture more now. I don't get along with it all. I don't agree with it all. I don't participate in it all. But I have a certain level of respect for who we naturally are because I've gotten to see I went to a lot of my friends' houses when I was in high school and middle school, and I got to see how they live. And they just as hood, they just as ghetto, their mother cuss up a storm and she acts a certain way around your friends that she don't do when she don't know you there. I'm on the phone with them and I'm hearing Miss Gladys talk a certain way that she don't talk when I'm there. I even with the racism, I remember being in high school and I was in a theater company. And when we had a tradition, we would do our plays would be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And there was a tradition of Friday night and Saturday night, there were sleepovers. And they were very racist. Like, I don't think they wanted me to stay at their house. Or it was certain families that definitely didn't want me to stay, but were uncomfortable telling me to leave because the rest of the cast and crew were there. And to let the only black person involved send them home, it looked a little different. And I played on that a lot, but I would not trade all of the hoodness in the world for something else. It just is a level of history in it, is a level of me in it. But I get it. Is it different when you are directly connected to Africa and African culture? Your sound, I think, is out.
I'm asking
Uh,
if it is different.
Like, does it feel different? I mean, because you've been able to experience African American culture, but is it that much different growing up with family that's directly connected? Like your parents are from Africa,
Mhm.
so is it a difference in it culturally or?
Most definitely, yeah. There is a difference because I grew up with the mentality here, and then I learned how to tolerate my culture where I'm from my parents, right? But yeah,
Mm,
there is a difference. Yeah, yeah, there is a difference. Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
interesting that you said that way because that is an issue here because people begin to tolerate their culture and there is a distance that grows in between a person and their culture. Shame or I've got a little bit more money now so I can be different. Um, or just a lack of, like, if you didn't grow up with your family or you grew up out in the suburbs, there's a difference in how people act when they come to the city. Like, I remember going to some of my family houses and I was expecting to see roaches and mice because that's what you see when you go to the hood. That's what I was told I was gonna see, and realizing not everybody. Some of them did have mice and roaches, and they were a little hood. They did do certain things that I didn't necessarily grow up with or agree with, but I learned to not tolerate my culture and deal with them like I deal with the rest of the world, you know. But I just have a respect for it, and only because of that pocket of time. And even now as an adult, I'm more diverse in the people that I'm around, but I choose to be around Black people more so than not, because we have to get back to a space where we see each other differently. We really see each other, and not just in a space of tolerate. But I get that word because I've experienced that, me feeling like I had to tolerate my cousins and my family members because they were just ghetto. I felt that.
What I meant more by tolerating is, let's say over here, like I grew up with the Switzerland, with
Mhm.
the Switzerland mentality, right? You got to be on time. You got to do this. You got to do that, right? But let's say exactly. A
But
brother
when you
be
go
like,
home,
"Hey yo," a brother be like, "Hey yo, where you at?" And he like, "Yeah, I'm just like down the block 15 minutes." And you know damn right that he's way further away from there. Or you're making an appointment with him around this time, nigga time. It's like, yeah, 2.5 hours later, right? And that's what I'm saying with like tolerating.
first of all, when I say I'm coming, I'm coming. But if the
Yeah, but
last person didn't make me late, I wouldn't be late. So I feel like you're talking to me again.
you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying.
I do, I get it, but that it's not a laziness, and I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but the world looks at that as a laziness. We're on a different time schedule. And that's like that. That's when I was saying when you're here in the United States, each place is totally different. So when you probably went to Atlanta, you had a different experience than when you went to California.
Yeah.
And it probably was kind of merged when you came here to Maryland. And you had a different experience. But we just on a different time schedule.
That's true. No, but what I was saying is like what I tolerate more. You know, I'm not that, I'm not sticking on time with my family like in Africa, right? Because they're not taking the time that seriously like they do over here in Switzerland. And I accept it. I mean, I don't want to be a time of slave like that, like they do over here. So I tolerate that and I totally accept it. It's cool. I'm not taking time that seriously. Or let's say like I'm not expecting something exactly on that time when we say it, because this is what we got to do here, right? But I don't have to do that with my family. So that's why I was like, you know what? I tolerate that. It's cool. That's what I meant.
As you know. And where's your family from in Africa again?
My father, he's from Congo, and my
Okay.
mother from Cameroon.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
I get it. I definitely get it. And oh, I get it. But Africans are different because they have a sense of urgency, but their delivery of that urgency is sometimes slow. Like they want you to be on time, but they just be like, I'm gonna get there. It feels like rain.
You know what? Let me be honest. I always thought, like Americans, they different, like black folks are different. And then I went to Africa, it's still the same. Let's say, like you call yourself like your neighborhood or what you have, like the ghetto, right? In Africa, it's still the same, just different.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
also do have the ghetto, but just in different terms and in different
Mm-hmm.
conditions. But it's still the same. It's still the same.
Yeah.
Still the same baby mama drama. Okay. Still
Yeah.
the same thing with with the time. Still the same with like taking stuff seriously or not.
But we
Absolutely.
are, but that should let us know that we are very much so the same. One of
Yeah.
my first jobs, my first real jobs within the arts was at a Nigerian art gallery.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget Mr. Fuller and his daughters and his son and the people that I met culturally within his family. It really, I kept saying to myself, because they had a lot of things that most people have for Black African Americans. They had a lot of uh, uh, you can't call it racism, but they had a lot of misconceptions about African Americans that we steal, that we're lazy, that we don't want to work hard, you know. And I think I helped them to see a different type of African American because I saw that in them, in their behavior towards me, and I checked it. And they're not used to being checked. You know, what they feel is what is correct. And I definitely went against that because I was very young at the time. But I realized, y'all ghetto, y'all hood, y'all like to eat for every celebration. Y'all make a celebration out of everything, and food must be a part of that. How we relate to each other, how we see other cultures of people, how we react, how we respond, you know, our attitudes, our personalities. It's very much so similar, very similar. There's some cultural differences, but cultural not being race. But in that same culture of differences, there's so many similarities. There's so many. When I'm talking to you, I can hear some of it when you're interacting with your family, and I'm very much so. It's a cultural thing, and people don't understand that. And I don't think we, as African Americans, and then people of Africa, I don't think direct Africans, I don't think that we acknowledge it enough, the similarities in us. But they're there. Oh, yeah. They're there. They're definitely there. I want to, because we kind of did go off on a tangent, but I wanted to, you know, go over that idea of balance, and how are you finding your balance in the midst, because we're still in a pandemic, in the midst of a pandemic, and just growing as a Black man. How are you finding your balance?
Well, like everybody else is already saying it already, that, you know, the pandemic forced you to be at home and taking your time for yourself. And then, and that's what I also had to face, that I also had to face with, and taking the time and to really think like, hey, yo, you know, there are certain hurdles. So now that I really have the time to be at home and not focusing on everybody else, or being, how do we say that, socially active, right? Let me take the time for myself. And then I explored and discovered like interesting things about me that I'm like, wow, yeah, just what I was lacking on. Okay, so let me fix that, you know. So it was an interesting.
Can you give us any examples? Not to prod or anything.
One prime, yeah, sure. One prime example was that I never gave a fuck about myself. I never gave a fuck about myself. I always helped other people out. For example, like, hey, Joffrey, what's up? Hey, dude, could you help me out? Because I got an eviction over here from $918. So please, could you help me out? And I was me with a good heart. Yeah, here we go. $1,000. Okay, I'm going to give it. Yeah, you didn't know that, right? Real talk. Yeah, this is what I did.
No, I didn't. That's not, our friendship hasn't gotten to that level yet. How do I get to that level of our friendship?
You should have came earlier. But just, yeah, it's just it showed me that, you know, actually, not everybody wants the best for you, you know, and you know, you got to be careful with like the energy that you are giving out, because we got energy zombies out there that really suck the living shit out of you, and when you got nothing in you anymore, they continue, right? And that was one thing that I learned, you know. I learned that. Yeah. And also,
that's a big lesson though. That's adult, that's putting yourself first, self-care, balancing your input output. Those are, I would say, two of the biggest lessons that I've learned as an adult. And we talked about that too. But how does it feel to be on this side of it?
Feels good. Feels great because you can look back now and you see the progress of evolution that you have done. So it always feels good, and it also pushes you and motivates you, to reach out for the better good
Hmm.
of yourself and the
I
better
still want
next.
that application though. I need that application.
What kind of obligation?
Uh, um, where I can request funds. I need that application so that I need to upgrade in my friendship level.
I thought you was talking about a chocolate box or something.
No, no. Mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm,
Okay.
mm-mm. I'm looking
Well,
for an
I mean,
upgrade.
look, you did a good start. You invited me already in your platform, and giving me like
First of all, let me
spotlight.
just explain to the people watching. I've always invited him to this platform. He has chosen to be a spectator. I don't know how I tricked him today into actually coming on, but I guess this is the upgrade that I just asked for.
I guess. I guess maybe I don't know. Nah,
Right.
man. Mhm.
So what are some other things that I mean you discovered those things about yourself? I'm sure. Well, the pandemic was helpful because some of our conversations I could tell you were really soul searching. But what were some of the harder things were they the harder things for you to face?
Um, the self
Mm,
hate that I had, and that self hate was actually um the third person that was holding me back from evolving. You know,
mm,
and that was so harsh. Like when I looked in the mirror, and then I was standing in front of the mirror, and I was like, actually, I hate you. I don't like you at all, right? And then I
mm-hmm,
was like, where does that come from? And then I had to dig deep in my past and to understand where it came from, right, and where it started. And it was harsh, and it was so like strange to be like, you know what, Jeffrey, I love you, and you're like, thank you, like to yourself. That and also when I started to lose all my friends, right? Because there was just one break point that came, and then I started to lose everything, and then I knew, hey, yo, now it's time that I really got to change something because, yeah, that whole empire and castle just broke down, and I didn't know why, and it was just that. I mean, if I had continued this way like I was, it would have been a downfall. So I had to move something.
I just saw a well I didn't just see it. It's been floating around in that for a minute, and I wish I would have seen that when I was like 19, 18, 17. But it says God often separates you from places and people because he heard conversations that they were having that you didn't get to hear. So he did you a favor. And sometimes we trying to hold on to those relationships and hold on to people, and we don't realize how destructive we are being to ourselves, not letting go. So a lot of those people had to be separated because can you see those people with you where you are now? They don't fit. Where would they fit at?
No, no, they can't even feel with you anymore. Because I mean, what I did basically, I gotta say, these people that did bad for me, I came back to them and I thanked them. Real talk, I thanked them. I was like, hey, yo, you know what? For all the bad stuff and the negative influences that you had, thank you. Thank you. And it was so strange. It was so strange for them because they can't talk to you the same way like they did. So it's kind of like awkward, but I just say they helped me out, to
Mm.
reach this level where I'm at now. So thank you. So
And they
yeah,
wouldn't have
it
been able
changed.
to be your friend while I was your friend because then I would have had to beat a bunch of people up. So it wouldn't have worked.
Wait, say that sentence again, please.
They
Because
would
yeah,
not
just
have they wouldn't have been able to still be your friend, and I'm coming into your world as your friend because I would have beat them up.
okay. Oh, that's sweet. That's sweet of you. Yeah. No, it was necessary. It was very necessary. Yeah.
Mhm.
It was so necessary.
What has it given you? I know you went back to school. You started doing other activities again. So what has it given you to be in this space of your life? Like what has it afforded you to be able to focus on?
Well, it just helped me to understand myself better. It helped me to understand myself better, and to be aware that, like the world is yours, like the world is mine, so I can basically like do everything. And it's important to have good people around you, instead of treating them like dog crap. And yeah, it just helped me to focus better, and instead with this negative cloud that I always had around me, I didn't understand where it came from, but it was always just pulling me down. So it helped me. It helped me to just to be like more in freedom with myself that I never really had for the last, let's say, 20 years, So
And we talked about that earlier, and it's just a number of decisions you have to consistently make in choosing you and choosing your happiness and choosing your joy, that we don't typically focus on. And once you begin to make the choice, which is the biggest thing, to make the decision to grow. And from that, growth will take things from your life. When you grow out of a pair of pants, you don't keep them. Eventually you give them away or you throw them away. So we have to I'm not equating human beings to a pair of jeans, but sometimes you have to grow apart from people. And we stay so stagnant because we want to keep that friend circle around us. We want to keep, those people in our space, and we lose focus of everything that we want, trying to hold on to what we thought we needed, and we just lose that focus. So it's just a string of decisions, and like I said earlier, sometimes it's second to second you got to make that decision. It's like an addict, who's trying to drop that habit, that addiction. They're always considered an addict, but the decisions that they consistently make to not indulge in it is what makes growth possible. So,
right.
But I definitely appreciate you sharing that with us. We have a breaking news announcement. The Maryland Transit Authority Board has approved waiving late fees for outstanding toll bills until November 30th. They also will not be referred to the Central Collection Unit or MVA to prevent flags and threats to your tax refund for 2022. Our government here is always trying to find a way. It's very pinky in the brain. It's always trying to find a way to tax us and to take something. And the tolls, what go between city to city, there's normally tolls. They had started charging people for these tolls because they went up in fees. And some people have, I believe it's like a little box on their car where they don't have to pay it, it's automatically charged. And I guess some people were being overcharged for that. The Easy Pass, right? And here you could go through the toll and they just go charge your wherever the address for your license plate is, because I did that a couple times. But it had a cash on me. But
okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Now we don't have something similar like this over here.
But y'all do have tolls there, though. Is it tolls or is it just between the countries?
Like when you say tolls, what kind of tolls exactly you talking about?
So our tolls are like, we have some within the city, but they're mainly between city to city, state to state. So you literally go through a toll to get to another city. And the money is supposed to go to keeping the roads and all that fixed, but you have to pay to go to another city.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do we have tolls in Switzerland?
Y'all probably do. You may not call them tolls, but like a checkpoint or something. You just have to, like the border. You know how you go into another country?
Mm-hmm.
and you may be driving through that country, and you at some point you don't just cross over into that city, or for you a country, but what happens is you have to pay a toll to get there. Within our states, we don't typically pay a toll. If you want to take, like here in Maryland, we have like, if you're like in the southern part of our city and you want to take the expressway, there is a toll where you can take a faster route, but typically our tolls are between the cities or between the states, rather.
Right. Okay, so yeah, we do have that, but let's say like from Switzerland, if you want to go to a neighbor country, Germany or France or Italy, we don't have that unless we're on a freeway, and then the fast not on the freeway. Yeah, then we gotta drop some couple of coins.
Yeah. So that's for us. That's how it works. So when you're driving, there is a space where you can you have to pay a toll, and I believe those tolls have went up. Yeah,
it makes sense. Yeah, they want to get that money.
Yeah.
Get the money.
It's just always something to tax us, and I feel like we have been overly taxed here. Like the price of chicken is gone up, and I love buffalo wings. And
did the price went up? Did the price went up at the buffalo wings?
Well, chicken in general. So everything is being blamed on the pandemic. In the beginning, I was like, okay, I understand it. You know, people are not at work. It's taking them longer to get things done. But after 2 years of this shit, you should have a better plan and a better strategy. And you shouldn't just be charging the markets or restaurants more for it. You need to figure out a better way. Like pay your employees more, and you won't have to worry about them not wanting to come to work. But a lot of people have left the work environment to work for themselves or do more contractual work. And that has allegedly, it has affected many of the businesses. So they're charging us more for chicken. Like I typically get the 10-piece buffalo wings when I get them. And that used to be like $8 or $9. Now you could spend up to $20 for like 10 to 12 wings. And they're not even the whole wings. They're like the drumettes or the flats. I mean, this conversation has gotten really fat, but I'm just saying, it's too many taxes on everything. Too many. Especially on food. Like you shouldn't be taxing food that way, because people are always going to be hungry. So you're always going to make your money. But people know, like a lot of stuff here went to delivery. Like you can get anything delivered now. Like our Grubhub or our, Uber drop, they will deliver anything to you. Anything. Literally anything. You can get condoms and vibrators and chicken and crabs, or you can get a couch delivered to you. Like between Amazon and all these delivery companies, I can't think of anything, alcohol, I can't think of anything that you can't get delivered now. I really can't think of anything.
Yeah,
is there anything, Monty, that we can't get delivered here now? Because I can't think of it. It's just, and you're gonna pay through the nose to get it delivered. You're gonna pay all these fees. So during the pandemic, it seemed very convenient. But in this last year, the price for it has gone up to get delivered. And the price of the actual product has gone up. So I'm in a different space. I'm over it.
Yep,
So
wine delivered. That's all I'm at.
You said where?
Get some wine delivered.
You can get wine, you can get liquor delivered now. You can get liquor, and that used to be the only thing that we could never get delivered here unless you had like wine shipped from a company to you. But typically, and that wasn't really a lot of companies doing that, but now you can get anything. If I need a cotton ball right now, I can go and get a cotton ball delivered to me within the next hour or so. Less than that, probably. And it's sad because I think that's why so many of us got fat here, fatter, but everything.
Okay. Now, the reason why it made me smile when you say buffalo wings, because I was just like rearranging my room and I saw like a box of also buffalo wings that I visited, when I visited the States. I mean, look,
You kept the wings or you kept the
buffalo
box?
wings, right there. Look,
Oh,
buffalo wings.
Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah.
Oh, you brought that back with you? Or that was like in the airport?
No, that's the reminisce, like that I had, I mean, yeah, look, I went there and I ordered these pieces, even though unfortunately I didn't pay attention to the scale because they got these sauces on the right side, right? That you're able to make. And I just picked the first two one that I saw on the scale.
Were they hot?
More than hot.
Oh,
Like
okay, yeah.
flames,
Buffalo Wild Wings, they specialize in wings. So their
right,
wings are pretty good. But
So
it's
that's
like
why
a
I made
chain.
it.
That's like a chain restaurant here. I wouldn't call it a restaurant. I would call it a chain.
So that's why I
But my last question, because we are coming to an end, because I treated myself to some cake and ice cream, and I want to finish it. What advice would you give to your 17-year-old self? And what question would you ask to your 100-year-old self?
The advice that I would give to my 17-year-old is like listen to yourself, like literally listen to yourself, like listen to your heart and go how you feel, and stop lying because it's not cool, because you're gonna catch up with a lie and the lie gotta cover that other lie. So just listen to your heart, be you, and the rest will follow. Just go with the flow. That's my new motto. Just go with the flow. And the person that I would ask that is 100, I wouldn't ask him shit. Wow. I wouldn't, because I feel he would tell me already the future of myself, and this will affect my present. Because that 100-year of person who's sitting at the throne, right? He had to go through certain things that I can be there, right? And I think this will gonna be just the best of me. So this is why I would.
What question would you ask to that if you had the opportunity to ask your 100-year-old self something? What would you ask them?
How I said, I wouldn't ask them anything. And I saw too many science fiction movies, and they showed me that when you mess up with the future, right?
Over you, like you're thinking too much. You're thinking too much.
But isn't it so? Look, okay. Well, to respond to your question, no, I wouldn't. I would not. Seriously, I wouldn't.
That's. I mean, I'm not to dispute you, but
let me ask you.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you. What did other, like, your other, not clients, but the people that you interviewed, right? Mm-hmm. What did they say if they would?
The majority of the people always ask, "Was it worth it?" I've had a couple people ask, "Are you satisfied?" And those are typically the bulk of. Some people get real philosophical and, what's the lottery on this date, but most people want to know, was it worth it? All that you've gone through, was it worth it? Which is polar opposite of what you would say to your 17-year-old self, but having a chance to speak to that age, was it worth it? And I understand why a lot of people ask that question.
I wouldn't ask them that, seriously. I wouldn't ask them that. It's just, I'm.
Are you afraid that they might say no? It wasn't worth it?
No. I mean, if I would see myself who is 100, what would I say? What would I say? What would I say to him?
I don't want to hear. I'll tell you later what I would say for you. But I'm not gonna say that for people.
Okay. Now, to be honest, like, I don't know what I would say. I might will come up with a couple of questions. But
when I give you the cheat code to this, then you'll understand why it's okay to ask a question.
Okay. But you know, I just feel then I ain't gonna be the same person who's gonna be 100 then if I ask him already the question. The same thing, like if you ask
The question or the advice to your 17-year-old self isn't to change history or to change something, but more so give your 17-year-old self a pep talk, or to your 100-year-old self, you're not seeking clarity or direction. You're simply saying everything that I'm going through right now, was it worth it? Was it worth for me to erase these people from my life, or go back to school, or what? That's more so for it. But I'll give you the cheat sheet for it, because this is this advice to your 17-year-old self and this question to your 100-year-old self. It's a good meditation prompt for yourself, and think about what your answers were to both of those. It tells you a lot about where you are right now. So that advice you gave and that question you didn't want to ask, it tells you a lot about where you are in your life right at this moment. So asking yourself, if you ask yourself this question a week from now, it may be a different response, because you may be in a different place a week from now. Or, I try to meditate over those two questions every day in the morning. And sometimes I do it before I go to bed, but it tells me a lot about where I'm presently at. Whether it be fears or success, it gives me a good indication of where I'm at mentally and spiritually right now.
Oh, I mean, thank you for the G code. Now, I think I would like to have just a regular conversation, and then I think I will also try to, come up with a couple of questions, like how did my life turn out? I think I would do it, but purposely, if I had the chance now, I think I would say no, Maybe I'm philosophizing like way too deep or taking it too deep, but I just think.
I think it was easy for you to go at your 17-year-old self. It may be a little intimidating to go to your 100-year-old self based off of some of the mistakes that you're still making. So you're almost going to your 100-year-old self apologetically. I'm so sorry I'm putting you through. I'm so sorry I'm putting you through this. Or why did you put me through this? Accusatory or, apologetic. But it says a lot about how you see yourself down the line. You're unsure about a lot of stuff. So how can you ask a question if you have uncertainty in your spirit right now?
That was deep. Thank you.
I mean, I'm a deep brother.
No, thanks, man.
But I've adopted that, and I typically ask my guests that question as well. But it really does. It helps me to balance myself and figure out where I'm at.
Look, I gotta go into the kitchen because my his snore is too loud.
You heard the crackle of it.
And it got louder and louder, right?
I didn't even hear it.
Oh, okay. So that means that Monty made a good job then.
I heard it.
Oh, I didn't even hear it.
He heard it, right? No, it's too loud. Like at first it started like small, but then it got louder and louder, and now he's cutting trees with his chainsaw. So.
Oh, I didn't even hear that. So, but I really appreciate you. I don't know what lined up today, because I've asked this man several times to join us, and I guess it was just timing. Sometimes it's just timing. Maybe I caught him with his management outfit on the day, so So it really, but I appreciate it. It was perfect timing. And it went right along with the conversation I wanted to have today. And I just wish you well on all that you're doing. And yeah.
I think, it's everything with everything happens with a reason. Nothing is with a coincidence.
Speak up a little bit. Yeah, speak up a little bit.
Okay. So yeah, I said it, everything, it has a reason why it happened today. Because it wasn't a coincidence, right? That all of a sudden, today, that you invited me. So yeah, thank you for inviting me, and
thank you for saying yes this time, because you said no a lot of times. Well, Joffrey never says no. He's like, maybe another time.
You know me. You know me. Yeah. But that's cool. No, but thank you.
But this has been another edition of the Artist Exchange Radio Show with my friend Joffrey on today. Tune in next Friday. We have a whole new guest, a whole new topic as we kind of round out Black History Month. And tomorrow, if you're in the Baltimore area, come out to the Black to the Future event. You can go to the Artist Exchange Instagram or Facebook page. You'll be able to see it on my Facebook page or my Instagram page. It is a networking event geared towards helping entrepreneurs and artists alike to reestablish themselves, do some artist development, some business development, network, and just find some hidden gems. Our facilitator tomorrow, so it'll be a vending event mixed with a workshop. Our first facilitator is Sharon Nixon of Baltimore Fashion Week. She'll be going over some marketing and branding techniques for social media. And this is the first in the series of the Black to the Future events. I'm working in conjunction with Shinya Wright of the Baltimore scene, and it's being sponsored and partnered with the Black Arts District here in Baltimore, the latest in a series of arts districts really geared towards uplifting Black voices and culture. So come on out. It's tomorrow at 7 p.m. At the Merlin Art Place on Saratoga Street. So come on down, join us, and it's free headshots, physical headshots for the first 25 people that come. Doors open up at 7 o'clock, so get there. A lot of freebies, a lot of resources, and a lot of good information and networking. And then we have some awesome vendors like myself that will be there in support. So peace out, people. Good night. Sleep tight. Yeah, peace out. Always showing off.